Today's a tough day for me, and I need to be very upfront about that. I'm going on about maybe an hour and a half of sleep right now. Just so you all know where I am. I've spent a lot of time as a youth and young adult minister, and this time last year was probably one of my toughest days in that role. And so I just want you to be aware of that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. But first I want to get into two of our scripture focuses. The first being the parable of the vineyard, and the second being from the 3rd chapter of Jonah. If you have a Bible in front of you, I think every one of you does, and you want to read up on that. If you get a little bit bored about what I'm talking about at first, you can certainly do that. I won't be offended at all if you're reading the Bible in church. And if you're using your phone to read the Bible, I won't be offended either. I do that all the time, I promise. I'm not playing solitaire or anything. I don't even have solitaire on my phone. So the parable of the vineyard. We have a bunch of workers. And a bunch of people looking for fairness and justice. A bunch of people looking for, how is the master going to make this right? And we think, or the workers I should say, think that masters should be generous based on how hard we've worked, based on what we have done to earn our reward. Well, doesn't that make sense? I think that makes a lot of sense. We saw a few salesmen yesterday, and one of those happened to not be very knowledgeable about his product. One of those happened to be very knowledgeable about his product, very well studied, very articulate, very aware of what he was trying to give us. One of those salesmen made a commission yesterday. The other one did not. That's fair, right? Yet Jesus in his parable is saying, I'm not concerned about what's fair. I'm not concerned about it. I'm concerned simply for the well-being of my people. And you need not be concerned about what's fair. What's right is there's something better coming up. Now in the 3rd chapter, that sounds exciting. That wasn't me. In the 3rd chapter of Jonah, we find Jonah has already been to Nineveh. He's already been in the whale, done all that gross stuff. He's been to Nineveh. He's preached his little spiel. He goes up onto a cliff, and he's ready to watch the fun begin. I did it, God. I didn't want to, but I did it. These people haven't lived like me. These people have not. I hope that's God calling them. These people have not lived the good Jewish life. Why would you reward them with salvation? They're not going to listen to me. I'm going to sit up here on this cliff and I'm going to watch God rain hellfire on this city. And it's going to be fun. Growing up in the South, I've known a lot of preachers like that, who giggle with delight when they talk about God condemning people to hell. I've been condemned to hell a time or two by a few of those simply for what church I choose to belong to. Often. I shouldn't say a time or two. Often. They're very much like Jonah. I did my job. I said the message. They're not going to listen. Let's watch what happens. And what happens is God grows this plant to shade Jonah. And Jonah's like, yeah, I've been rewarded. This is really good. And then God causes that plant to wither. Oh God, why have you punished me? I've been a good servant. Jonah, your heart's not in the right place. Jonah, you're not really where I want you to be. But God, can't you do something to make life better for me? Well, I sent you to make life better for other people, but your heart wasn't in it. Eventually, we see a lot of changes. We see people turn to God. We see people choose a different way. Now, I mentioned this is a kind of a tough day for me. In truth, it's kind of a tough week for me. I had a conversation with a really good friend late Wednesday night. I have a lot of late night conversations, usually on Facebook, but on this time it was over the phone. I don't get out of class on Wednesdays until 9:30, and then I have an hour and a half drive home. So it's really good to be able to talk to somebody while I'm driving home, because I've got to be back on the road by 7:15 the next day to make it to my next class. So I'm talking to this friend of mine, and this friend of mine has been struggling for the last year and a half to 2 years, and we've been talking on and off about his struggle. And his struggle has been with the World Church. Now, if I were in Nauvoo, this would be a point where I'd cover my name badge, so I'm not officially speaking on behalf of the church. So I'm metaphorically going to do that. This friend of mine had been accused of something that his local administrators did not believe he had done. In fact, they know that he had not done it. Unfortunately, what he was accused of, World Church policy would say, till we sort this out, you're going to be silenced from your priesthood responsibilities. It had become apparent along the way that the person that accused him of this was not telling the truth. And yet, these World Church authorities, they continue to step in and say, this is our policy, this is what we're going to do, and kept driving him further and further and further and further away. My good friend this week has decided to leave Community of Christ over that. And it breaks my heart, and it makes me so angry. And then on that same night, Wednesday night, we put out this statement about we're withering on the vine financially. And I'm going to tell you, I'm tempted to be like Jonah right now, sit on that cliff and say, all right, God, show me what's going to happen here, because I'm not feeling too happy with some of these people. I'm tempted to be that person. I'm carrying a lot of anger right now. And yet I'm preparing for this day, and I see a man who's told, your heart's not in the right place. You need to be invested in change, invested in making things better. And it's really difficult. Swallow my pride But friends, I'm going to tell you, this is a church that I love. This is a history that I love. This is a cause that I love. A people who proclaim the worth of all persons. We don't do it perfectly. Sometimes we push people in the wrong direction. But we're trying. But we do have a calling. We do have a purpose that we're striving to become. And I think it's worth the investment. And so like Jonah, and maybe some of you are angry about some of the stuff that's been announced this past week. Maybe some of you are up on a cliff right now, deciding, am I going to watch the show? Or am I going to go down there and live among the Ninevites? Am I going to go down there and say, let's make it better? Let's dig in and be agents of change. I'm not sure where you are. I know where I am right now. And it's hard. But I'm there. Now, the other thing that makes today a very, very tough day for me. A year ago today, hardest day for me in youth and young adult ministries. A young man whom I love very, very much. I've been struggling with some things for a while. We've been talking for about 2 months about how life was going and things like that. And I thought that things were getting better for him. We were talking about camp and talking about ministries in the church and how excited he was. On the 23rd of September, he drove up to Tulsa to visit with some friends. Had a great time. And we thought, man, things are going well. Things are going well. Sometime in the evening of the 23rd or in the early morning of the 24th, things weren't going so well. And this young man whom I had mentored in a program in Oklahoma Mission Center that we call LEAD, L-E-A-D, Leadership, Education, and Development, a program that's designed specifically to grow youth and young adults into the leadership of the church so that old people don't have to keep doing what things people my age should be doing. So that people my age can move into those roles and the young adults can move into our roles. This young man, this leader in the church, decided that life was too difficult for him anymore. And he put a bullet through his heart. And it's been a year of immense struggle. Now, there were Jonahs in his life. There were people watching him saying, see, every decision you make is not perfect. There were people telling him. There were people on the cliff ready to say, hey, let's see what happens here. Because he's not making good decisions all the time. We're going to point those out. There were preachers, Southern preachers in his life. He's from Arkansas. There were Southern preachers in his life telling him, you go to that church, you're going to hell. There were people in his life who were agents of destruction. And there were those in his life who tried their hardest, but could not save him from what he was determined to do. Brothers and sisters, it's a hard time in Community of Christ right now. There are people hurling stones. we're going through tough times. People I love are leaving the church. People I love are saying it's over. There's no chance for resurrection. There's no chance for something better. They're sitting on the cliffs. They're pointing fingers at administrators past and present who made bad decisions. They're pointing fingers at you and me for sticking to it and saying, we're going to invest. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep trying. Let's be among the Ninevites. Let's be about mission. The song I shared with you just a few minutes ago is called Missionary Prayer. It's part of a song cycle that I wrote several years ago. And it was my response to the call to go to Australia. I will go where it is you send me. And when life is rough, you are there to lift me when I fall. Help me seek the fallen. Help me be your hands, O Lord. And then ultimately, we talk about the reward. And when life is through, let your word be, welcome home, my child. Well done, my servant. Whether you've been there since the early morning, whether the master collected you from the courtyard at 5 p.m., that's the reward. Welcome home. Well done, my servant. That's the generosity of God. It's not the generosity, the godly generosity is not what's being preached in those churches that are pointing fingers at us. There's a man in the town where I grew up in, and you can find his video on YouTube, I'm not kidding you. Walks right up to a young adult sitting on the second row who's studying to be a police officer, studying late at night, has him stand up because he's fallen asleep in church, points him out in front of the whole congregation and tells him he's not worth, literal words, 10 cents. That's the God that people are representing. The God that people are putting on us when we claim to be Christians in the world. That's what we're up against. And that's why it is so vitally important that a church who upholds the worth of all persons prevails, survives, and thrives. In Chicago, in Independence, in Springfield, Missouri, down in Arkansas, down in Oklahoma, wherever it happens to be. That's something worth investing in. If I can end a sentence with a preposition just one time in a sermon. That's something worth the investment. To say, we're not going to be those people. We're not going to let that message co-opt who Jesus Christ is. The God of the vineyard. The God of Jonah's vine. That is something worth preserving and becoming. And that's why I've got to get off my cliff. That's why I can't stand up there and point fingers and point blame. That's why I can't say it's not fair. I'm a hard worker. I should get more. It's got to be about the work and about sharing the reward. I think it's worth it. Do you?